Hi everybody, my name is Eloise Williams and I am an author currently writing for children, and I'm also Children's Laureate Wales, and I'm really lucky to be able to chat to three fantastic teachers today who have gone above and beyond to push the importance of reading for young people and to celebrate reading for pleasure. So I'm really excited to chat to them. I think if we start off with introductions, if you could tell people who you are, where you are, and what you do, that would be brilliant. So we'll start with you, Simon, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Hi, I'm Simon. I'm in a primary school in Wrexham, and I also run a blog, Family Bookworms Wales, which extols the virtues of Welsh authors, illustrators, and books for children.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And Claire, if we come to you next.
I'm Claire Douglas. I teach at Clyther Primary School in Newport. I'm a Year 2 teacher. I have set up a Reading for Pleasure group with Joe Bowers, who's the literacy lecturer at Cardiff Met when I did my PGCE. We're in our 3rd year now and enjoying lots of connections in the children's literacy world through the group.
Fantastic, thank you. And last but not least, Scott.
Yeah, I'm Scott. I'm a primary school teacher as well. I teach in the Newport area, but lately I've become more involved in the children's book world, and I do book award judging, writing resources for publishers, and a whole other host of things as well.
Fantastic, thank you so much, everybody. It's lovely to see you here. So my first question is a really basic question. You're 3 experts in this field, so how do you get children interested in reading in schools? Any hints or tips or advice for people? I don't mind who goes first. Scott, let's come to you.
Yeah. Basically, I don't think there's kind of an easy road really in terms of building reading into your school, but I think you've got to kind of make it the bedrock and the beating heart of your school. And I think that's done in kind of a myriad of different ways. For me, I think the main thing about getting children to read is having a reader teacher, hint, hint, but having a reader teacher in your school that is passionate about reading and kind of drives that from the ground up. If you have somebody that knows books and is passionate about books and builds that passion then into the children and into the school that way, that is a huge step then on your first kind of step of the journey, I suppose, to be in a Reading for Pleasure school. But then there's a whole host of other ways, which I'm sure we'll cover later on, but it goes into school libraries, making sure that reading aloud is a big part of your school culture as well. But yeah, I'm sure kind of we'll dig into them as we go, as we speak as well too.
Brilliant, thank you. Great overview of what you do there. Brilliant. Simon, what about you?
Yeah, I think enthusiasm, an enthusiastic teacher is really, really important. I think children can very easily see through you if you're not enthusiastic about it. So a lot of the things that Scott has said there, you know, sharing books on a daily basis, reading aloud, and I think the teacher's own personal knowledge as well of the books, because quite often you'll have children who maybe haven't found the book that's right for them and they're looking for recommendations. And so if you're not in that position where you know what the books are, it makes it very difficult. I mean, it's still very difficult sometimes with some children for them to help them, to support them to get the book that really switches them on. But I think your own knowledge and your own enthusiasm, and let's face it, you know, children's books are a world of pleasure in themselves. So it's no hardship for us to be reading these books.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you so much. And Claire.
I think I'd probably start off with saying, certainly where I'm at, Reading for Pleasure is a key school priority. So it's up there in the school development plan, and it has been particularly Reading for Pleasure for quite a few years now. So having that kind of somebody's already said the beating heart of the school, that's really prominent where it was certainly where I teach, and I'm lucky enough to have a whole host of colleagues and friends at school who have that same passion for children's literature. So we really genuinely are teachers that are readers and readers that teach. I think something that's really close to my heart is reading environments, and it's something that we've done a lot of work at the school that I'm in. So really making the wonder of that lovely little nook or cranny or cwtch to go to, and really listening to children's voices to help them help us to shape those wonderful reading environments. So certainly for me, reading environments is something I'm really passionate about. And I think we'll talk about it more later on, but the connections with authors as well. I think we've had some tremendous successes, particularly through Twitter and the power and that wonderful, rich community on Twitter, where children can really see and make those connections with the authors of the books. And it really kind of brings the author into the classroom, and it really fires their imaginations then. So those are a couple of things. One of our things we never sell short is everyday reading and reading aloud as well. So those are the few things that I put in there to start us off.
Fantastic. So with everyday reading, if you're doing everyday reading, does that take place at certain specific times of day? Does it work better at certain times? Does that carry on at home time? Do the parents get involved in that as well, or is that just within the school environment? Simon?
I think you'll find it's different everywhere. It's what works best for people. I do a read aloud session at the end of the day, so I share a book with them at the end of the day. It's quite a nice thing to end the day with. They always really look forward to it. I always end on a cliffhanger, and they go home absolutely elated and looking forward to the next day. We then have a session within the school day as well, where they're reading their own choices, their own sort of independent reading, if you like, and again, it's difficult to get that to get those books closed at the end of the session. They just want to carry on and talking as well after they've read the books. Sharing their own opinions, sharing recommendations with others. I think that talking about the book that they're reading is really, really important. Sort of draws out not only things like their understanding, but their ability to express their own pleasure in what they're reading and making connections with other books that they've read. In terms of sharing with parents, then yes, those that they do have books that go home to parents, and quite often you'll mention a book, and then a child will appear with a book in class that a parent has heard about and sort of has bought for them. So there are connections, and we sort of share things through newsletters with parents as well. So it's
Great. So I'm just wondering, in my travels through schools, I've that's not fair. I've sometimes come across parents who are reluctant to be involved with their children's reading. And I'm just wondering how you tackle that, if you do at all, to try and get them involved.
I think a couple of initiatives we've had in the past, well, certainly before March 2020, we ran some really wonderful parental workshops in school. And they were a combination of reading strategies to equip parents to support their children at home, combined with mindfulness. So we started off with some breathing techniques and yoga with parents once they kind of embraced that. And then we had kind of carousels of activities. So we had props, a lot of props featured around our foundation phase classes. So kind of year one, as they were going into year one, making a microphone and becoming an interviewer, making a TV screen and putting yourself in the TV screen and becoming a star, making glasses and really those really engaging, fun techniques and activities. And certainly the evaluations that we ran after those workshops that we did with parents were fantastic. And I think obviously through distance learning that then posed challenges where we couldn't all be together. So some of the responses that we did for that, we ran through our live sessions, guided reading sessions. We used some of the online books that were available and really heavily played on the modelling with parents in the room as well. So kind of equipping them through the children really about how we go through our guided reading daily. So that was quite good. We had some lovely feedback about how positive that was for parents and how it better equipped them to support their children in reading.
Yeah.
So the things we've done both before and after, things went a bit different.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I think, some parents are just reluctant because they didn't have a very good time in school, or they didn't engage with reading when they were younger. So, there's no blame, but it's great to get them involved and get their input, isn't it? Scott, I'm just going to ask you about the importance of libraries in schools. We've said that having a reading space is really important. And I know that you opened a new library. What does it say on your top?
Libraries give us power.
Perfect t-shirt. So how has it made a difference in that school, having a dedicated library space?
Well, in all my kind of classrooms when I've been teaching, I've always my mainstay is having a class library, but then I just wanted to push that out into the school wider so the benefits were being seen. So as you said, you opened our library for us, which is fantastic.
I wish I'd had that t-shirt at the time.
And absolutely, our library now has become kind of the central sort of visual way of showing those books now being lent to different classes, and the enthusiasm has been kind of tantamount towards that. That's helped then build parents, I suppose, because like you said, I think parents have this the perception, don't they, of either they were a reader when they were a child or they weren't a reader when they were a child, and there's kind of like that polarization of it. And I think you've got to kind of break down those boundaries between them and ensure that reading is seen in that positive nature. So when you came in to open our library, we didn't only just have you open it, we then had you do an event after school, a sign-in event, and the parental engagement in that was phenomenal. I've never seen queues so long. So yeah, absolutely. And involving parents in these events, like we've pre-COVID, obviously, we took our classes and our Key Stage 2 to an annual trip to Hay Festival. We would always make a point of the parents being involved with that, so then they could see kind of the behind the scenes stuff that they've never seen in a literary festival and go into that side of things, which would then encourage them to talk about those authors at home with their children and then talk about them with other parents in the school as well. So it's almost like a ripple effect in a way. The more things you do involving parents along the way, the more the effects will be spread out wider. But it's about having that variety of effects too, like the author events, like the kind of festivals we go to, but then bringing it down then to that grassroots level, like you said, sending books home, getting parents involved that way. But also we're really lucky in our school, we've got like a library literally within walking distance. And if you can get kind of that sense of knowing that parents can be involved in that sense by taking their children to the libraries as well, then that is huge, because we often have kind of, well, we've got a massive link with the summer reading challenge, and we make that kind of a pivotal focus in our school. So yeah.
So what is the summer reading challenge for anybody who doesn't know?
Well, when you're talking about libraries as well, I have to say that I'm so keen about libraries because I used to work in libraries. So that's my kind of standpoint. Yeah. And I led the summer reading challenge, and the summer reading challenge is you read over the 6 weeks. Your aim is to read 6 books over the course of 6 weeks, and they can be any books. And this is one thing I wanted to kind of flag up when we talk about everyday reading too, is that the books can be fiction, non-fiction, poetry, picture books, graphic novels, anything basically. But just getting children reading, and then when they return those books to the library, then they get stamped off and they earn prizes along the way. And if they complete the 6 books, then they get entered into a prize draw for a bigger prize. I think there's tablets on offer, bikes and things like that. So it's almost an incentive to get children reading, but it's not like some incentives I've come across can be kind of make it more of a competition, but I don't see the summer reading challenge as making it a competition. It is more tune into those kind of independent and individualness of reading too.
Sounds amazing, and I love a good stamp as well.
Yeah.
Simon, you've got a library in your school as well. Is that important to your school? Is that like a hub for you?
It literally is the hub. It is the centre of the school, and you can't really go anywhere without going through it. And we're very, very lucky. It is extremely well used. We do use it after school with parents as well, so parents can come in and make those choices with their children. The children can show things off to the parents. We've got story sacks and story bags that they can borrow with their parents to take home. We sometimes pop a little hot chocolate sachet in the sack so they can sort of settle down at bedtime and enjoy that story together if they need further encouragement. But yeah, it is so important, really important. And it also, the other thing it allows us to do is to sort of track the reading habits as well across the school, and for the children to lead on making the choices and recommendations for books that we should buy next.
Brilliant, fantastic. And Claire, do you have a library in your school? I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, we've got one at the top in our Key Stage 2 building. So that's the one that we started the revamp on, which was a lovely project to be involved with. So we gave questions to all of the Key Stage 2 children, and that really helped us to reshape the library. And that was just wonderful. What their responses when they came back in were lovely. And we also introduced the element of book reviews as well. So children were leaving more comprehensive book reviews to inspire others. We classified them in a very different way, more likened to what they wanted. They wanted better lighting, they wanted softer seating, a more comfortable kind of environment. So we've managed to do all of that, which we were really fortunate to do. And then we've rolled that out right the way through all the classrooms as well. So we were lucky enough to get some funding to upcycle wood, and then the children have worked with a local contractor to upcycle beautiful apple crates and designed those in their own classrooms, and then gone one step further and classified their own libraries to suit. So in every single class, they're going to be a different arrangement, whether that's alphabetically or in genre, or you know, some of them, you'd be delighted to know, have a Welsh category as well. So they're really bespoke to what the children in each of those classes want, and it's made such a difference. Lots of front-facing beautiful books as well, and they're just really pleasing aesthetically, and they feel lovely places to be as well. So it's rolling through the school. What we did in the Key Stage 2 library initially is rolled out all the way through the top end of the school, and now that's kind of filtering through in our foundation phase classes as well. But pupil voice plays really heavily in all of that, so we really shape them and tailor them to each of the classes, which I think is that inspiring thing for each class then to get that better engagement.
Fantastic. So I'm going to ask you about environment again and activities that go alongside books. And it's a strange question, but what is the strangest or the weirdest or the craziest thing you've done to kind of get young people reading a book? So an activity maybe that goes alongside them. Has anyone done anything really strange?
I've just finished one, if I'll start with this one, because sometimes you have an idea and then you think, oh, I've gone so far now, I can't back out. So we used Yuval Sommer's The Street Beneath My Feet. And as we went further and closer to the Earth's core with each double page, be a great idea to combine this with a bit of expressive arts and a bit of DP. So we had a diorama for each double page spread. And then I got halfway through the term and thought, well, by the end of the term, I'm going to have this kind of 10-foot huge thing in the classroom and all the consequences of health and safety that brings. We did it, but in the middle of the term, I was thinking these things were gathering momentum, and they were fine when they were side by side, you know, but then to mount them for the full effect. And then we were able to, and it's a beautiful pull-out book, I'm sure you've seen it, to stand the pull-out book next to this enormous 9-foot set of dioramas. So at one point I thought, is this one of the most ridiculous ideas ever? But it worked, and they were so engaged in every aspect of it. And we were really lucky to teach across the curriculum with that wonderful book as well. So it was a really enriching experience, and it was, you know, it was a 3D book by the end of it. It was fabulous. I did worry about my choices at some point during the term though.
Good to carry on creatively though.
Can't stop now.
Brilliant.
I think you do whatever you can to immerse the children in the particular book. I'm planning something at the moment. We've just finished reading Sweet Pizza, which takes place in Bryn Mawr, and at the end of it, there's like this big food festival which celebrates the community and the boy, the main character's history. And so we're going to try and mimic that within the classroom. We're going to make the sweet pizzas. We're going to have a little bit of a party. We're going to string up the lights. You know, we're going to discuss the different communities and the representation in Wales as a country and in our own local area, and really try and just get into the feel of the book.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. What a fantastic thing to do. Fab. Scott, done anything to get children involved?
Yeah. On the whole, it doesn't sound that crazy, but World Book Day, we planned to write a whole school story, which doesn't sound crazy. But then when you've got to think about, you've got nursery children's ideas, so you've got 3-year-olds ideas, then you've got 7-year-olds ideas, and then you've got 11-year-olds ideas. You can see the twists and turns that can take. And we had all sorts of things, from teachers becoming witches to the most fantastical storms happening out of nowhere. So yeah, imagination goes absolutely wild. So that is one thing that if any schools are out there and they're looking for a sort of activity that really portrays the whole school and their imagination, I would definitely do that. Share the story between you, going from nursery right up to year 6 if you can.
Yeah, it does sound quite crazy, to be honest. Great. I'm interested as an author myself. What can authors do to help? How do you think that connecting with authors is important? I know you said previously about Twitter. Are there other ways that you connect with authors that is helpful to your reading community?
Yeah, do you want me?
Oh, I don't mind who starts. I don't mind. Go on then, Scott, if you want.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I think connecting with an author is so personal that it just adds that kind of extra touch that I think could turn maybe somebody who's reluctant to read, possibly, into a reader. I think having that personal connection and that chance to ask authors questions, get comments on their book, or even do different things with them. Like one thing we did really well with you when you acted as our patron of reading, because that's another initiative that I think should really be kind of publicized well in schools, is we wrote a story with you, and that brought out a different side to children that maybe are not kind of write as freely and as expressively and openly as they do maybe in lessons, but wanted to go full steam with you because they knew that your feedback was so valued to them that they were so keen to get on the computer and realize what's Eloise said about my story, how she continuing it, how she taking my words and using them. And to have that from an author, and you authors are famous in schools. Some of you might not say that you're famous, but you are to children, is so valued to them, and is huge. It is absolutely huge.
And it was so much fun for the author involved in that case as well. It was just brilliant, lovely to be involved with that. Simon?
Yeah, I think I've learned that authors like to be told that people are enjoying their work. So, you know, don't be afraid of writing to authors. Don't be afraid of children sending them trinkets and letters and filling envelopes full of stuff that they've drawn, and sending it off to authors. I think that the Twitter connection is absolutely invaluable because it's just so instant. It shows you that we're all real people. And I've had some incredible connections with authors. And I think having authors in school is a really important part of just building that reading for pleasure, sort of building that community. So you know, having them on a Zoom meeting at the moment, it's almost, well, it's not as good, but it's almost as easy at the moment to try and meet up with authors and to have them in the classroom with you, and to share their experiences of writing. And everything else that goes along with reading and enjoyment. It's been, yeah, it's brilliant.
Fantastic. And Claire, you said that it's really worked for you on Twitter. Has it worked in any other ways?
Really similar to what Simon and Scott said. Really, it's the instant connection. It's so inspiring for the children, really motivating. We've had some lovely local connections with the Karen Celestine with the books that she's done. We had a freebie as well, which was gorgeous. She sent us some lovely resources. We really did a gorgeous session at our Hay Festival celebrations to kind of capture the essence of finding your place, the book that she's wrote and she sent to us. That was really lovely, and they're so inspired by that. We've had lovely dialogue with Joseph Coyler, with Fiona Lumbers, with lots of authors, and they really are genuinely, they're on gods, these authors, and these genuinely, Eloise, and the work we've done with you with the workshops, particularly with
Please don't say God next to me.
on another level, but the work that you've done with our year 6 class, for example, I think you did some story mapping with them and visualizing the stories. The feedback that we have from the class and from the class teacher was absolutely phenomenal. The engagement you've had with their artwork with the sea glass has been lovely, and it really, really motivates them. The dialogue is really important.
And it works both ways, because it really motivates me, the feedback that I get from the children that you work with, and they give me the inspiration to carry on writing, especially when it's difficult. You can look at something like a thank you card, for example, and just think, oh, you're making a difference with the work you're doing.
The other thing is the shadowing of book awards, and I know we've all been involved with that, particularly the Tierna Nog ones. The shadowing with the pupil shadowing has been really, really fantastic. And again, a couple of years ago, we took the children that shadowed the book awards to the evening event in Cardiff, and that was really empowering for them. They're reading the book, and then these people are in the room in front of them, so they've had the beautiful experience of reading, pretending to be a panel, being a judge, and then go into the room, seeing the announcements and that excitement. That was brilliant. The feedback we got from parents for that was incredible, but the journey that the children went on has been wonderful with the shadowing of the events as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important for them to feel as if they're part of the literature landscape in Wales, isn't it? So that kind of event gives them a real time to, I guess, feel noticed and heard and important and connected.
Yeah.
On the subject of the Tierna Nog and Welsh books in general, how important do you think it is for Welsh children to see themselves represented in literature, to see Wales represented in literature, and to see Welsh authors working as well, I guess? I don't mind. answers?
I think you should start this one, Simon.
Well, I think it's quite important. I think it's essential for any child in any country to feel connected to, to see themselves in the books that they read, and I don't think Wales should be an exception to that. So it's absolutely thrilling when children are looking at a book, reading a book, and suddenly they make that connection that is very personal to them. I've visited that place, I've been to that campsite, I've had an experience like that. That just makes it so real for them. Absolutely, it changes lives, the fact that they can see themselves in a book. And I think that then turns them on to other things as well, because I think it then makes them realize, hang on a minute, this is somebody who lives down the road from us, who's written a novel that has been turned into a book that's in the shop. I could do that. I didn't know I could do that. And I think it is life-changing for so many children, and it turns them into aspirational, it gives them ambition, and it really switches on a light for them. I think it is, essential, especially, we're talking about us here in Wales, teachers in Wales, and I think it comes back to the very first point I made about having the knowledge of those books as a teacher, being able to share those books as a teacher with your class is a joy and a privilege.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. As you probably know, I think it's completely essential to see it. And I also think that in my post as Laureate, it's been really interesting to be a normal person, that normal, so that when I meet young people, they see that it is an achievable goal. It is something that they can do. Anybody can do it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think there's a point about it, they're not mutually exclusive. You can have a book that deals with sort of Welsh themes and Welsh places, but at the same time it can be universal. Yeah. At the same time, it doesn't matter where you are when you're reading that. It's just really nice to have that connection for us.
Yeah, agreed. Scott, would you like to add anything?
I also think it's kind of essential to think about like us in the world as well, and our place in the world as Wales, because like obviously the kind of impressions that people get of Wales sometimes are based through the literature they read. So if our books then go out to other countries, other places, that our kind of representation of Wales as it is has to be true and has to be authentic. And I think kind of having those kind of own voice authors as well are really important as well. The authors that come from Wales, the publishers that come from Wales as well, because Wales does have a growing book trade. And I think putting ourselves on the map in that respect as well, because like Firefly Press, I think deserves massive acclaim as a Welsh publisher, but then you've got kind of smaller publishers growing too, like Grapheg, Goma as well, who's I think sadly closed, haven't they? But those publishers, they need kind of bigger appeal and bigger name and more publicization, because they're the ones presenting what we are to the world as well. So I think kind of having that in the kind of back of our mind as well, as a way of going forward and thinking about the visions that we present of our country as well is important too.
Yeah, I think it's a really kind of diverse and interesting country, and it's very often seen in stereotypes, isn't it? So
yeah,
to challenge that as well, I think is really important. Claire, anything to say? That sounded really aggressive, sorry.
I think Simon is always my go-to for what he's put online in terms of choices and looking for new titles that have got that connection with everything that's Wales and Welsh. I completely agree with everything that they've said already, and also I think from a teacher's point of view, it's about looking for those opportunities to put yourself out there, to find those new titles, those up and coming authors. So for me personally, I've not been in teaching very long, only about 3 years, and just finding myself given the opportunity to be in the Tîr na nOg Awards the first year was fantastic, and that really opened my eyes and opened my perspective to a real wealth of Welsh authors, Welsh illustrators and publishers, and I think so the responsibility is with us to get ourselves out there and look for those opportunities as well.
So how do you find out about new authors and new publishers? I know that you always seem to be on the button, on the money as far as that goes. So where do you find out that information for anybody who doesn't really know how to do that?
I'm going to plug Simon's research about the land of my authors first and foremost, because I found that really helpful at a conference that we went to. It was a UKLA conference in Bristol, and he shared the piece of work there. So that's always a really good, the research that's out there is a really good starting place if you kind of navigate your way around the research-rich pedagogies that are online. So that's always a good starting point. It's a really good piece of research by Simon and Joe.
Yeah. Fantastic, thank you. Last question for you then, because we're running out of time already. Your vision for a future reading Wales, what is it? What's the most essential thing? What do you think would be the most brilliant future for us, for our young people? It's kind of a strange question, I know.
I think as we're teachers, I think there's a couple of things in the new curriculum for Wales that are really they really stand out to me. And one phrase is that literature should be used to fire the imagination, to fire creativity and imagination. And I think that as a starting point is it's a good place. It's a good place to be. It's a good place to aim for. I think that acknowledgement that literature is the starting point for many lessons and for many themes that you might do in school. For me also, having a knowledge of Wales's heritage and societies, I think that's something that I like to more so address through literature and through reading for pleasure. It's more of the same. It's more and then some more.
Brilliant, thank you. Scott, anything to add?
Yeah, I wrote an article recently and I said that the vision and the world we want to create is one where everyone is reading their way to a better life. And I think basically like books can be everything to everyone.
Brilliant, everything to everyone, I like that, great. And Claire, anything to add?
I've got to follow that now. I just think it's about having access to the right book at the right time and being really creative when you find that book and being able, as it said, teach across the curriculum. And we've had great fun with the right book in our class this year, and the places it's taken us has been phenomenal. So the right book at the right time with the right amount of imagination and creativity, the places you'll go.
Thank you so much. I feel thoroughly enriched by this conversation. I feel really hopeful. I'm hoping we're going to have a fantastic future. It looks like we will do with teachers like you three in charge. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting. And is there anything anybody wants to add or say before we go?
Thanks for offering the opportunity. It's been really nice. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Pleasure and a privilege.